June 12th. So the immediate crisis of the Mark event has passed. He's still confined, which I don't like, but at least I've been allowed to visit him in his makeshift cell. Johan insisted on sitting with me throughout, like it was some kind of prison visit. It was sprung on me pretty last minute, so I didn't have time to grab my phone. I would have loved to have recorded it. Anyway, Mark actually seemed quite pleased to see me. I asked a couple of things about the base, but he quickly started shutting down, like his clockwork motor needed winding up, and I asked if he could remember what was happening immediately before the event. He says no. I asked if anything was said which might have triggered him. Again, nope. So I expand into his general state of being. Does he have any significant worries? And I did get a little bit more out of him, but he just said everyone's got worries. Money, sex, work, all that shit. I ask him about flashbacks. Has that been a problem? He says no. Well, in fact, it's not really a no. It's more of just like a no grunt. Then from there on in, he just sort of went into a trance. And I think mostly because Jasleen still got him doped up. And so we left, and once outside, once the door was locked again by prison officer Gunnison, I tried to talk Johan out of the sedation, but he just shut me down. He said it was doctor's orders. And I just don't think it is. I think they like this simpler solution because it solves their problem. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like the psychiatric institutions in the old days, the liquid cosh, give them TV and tranks and walk away. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. We have to understand what happened to Mark. I just don't think it's winter over syndrome. And alright, fair enough, I've never seen it personally, but everything I've read points in a totally different direction. With winter over syndrome, you get unhappy, you get tetchy, you get sleep-deprived people, and you get wired people, you get people with the famous big eyes, and people who can't concentrate. And yes, admittedly, Mark was a lot of those, but you do not get people going off the deep end the way that Mark did. I mean, that kind of blowout is not even referenced once in the literature, and I've been through it all. So, now we have to ask, is this his post-traumatic stress disorder? I have the National Institute of Mental Health guidelines here for PTSD, and I quote, "The 4 indicators are, first, at least 2 arousal and reactivity symptoms, tick. 2 cognition and mood symptoms, tick. But I asked him today about a re-experiencing symptom, and I got nothing. No evidence of flashbacks, or, well, nothing he wants to talk about anyway. Now, I checked around the base. Has he mentioned anything like this to anybody else? And it doesn't seem like it. So the final one, at least 1 avoidance symptom. And again, not that I've seen. I mean, what's he avoiding? He can hardly be any further from anything that might remind him of frontline combat. So, look, yes, PTSD does have to be considered, but again, for me, it's just not quite adding up. So, that leads me to ponder the possibility of drugs. Now, is someone doping him without his knowledge? Does he have a secret narcotic issue or prescription meds that he's kept hidden? Jasleen says there's nothing on his medical records, but it's not that difficult to bring something in with you, and no one would know about it. He could have hidden his stash anywhere on the base, and you're never going to find it unless you have a drug dog or something. There is, of course, a much easier way to work out if it's drug-related, and that is a fucking blood test. And Jasleen just stomped on it straight away. No hope of answers there. And I'm just wondering, she was so sure. Was it even her decision, or was it Johan's orders? Because when I went back to him after our thoroughly dispiriting session in the padded cell, he totally nixed any plan to ask Keone to consider these possibilities. And personally, I can't see the problem. Surely taking blood samples is protocol. We need answers, and that might help to get them. And just saying it's winter over syndrome and locking him up is not the right way to go about this. I mean, we desperately need outside advice on this. It's way above Jasleen's pay grade. She's fucking floundering. I mean, it's not her fault. She is just a GP, really. Whereas I am a behavioural scientist, and no one is listening when I say Mark's behaviours are not adding up. 1 simple blood test, then I'll shut the fuck up. I mean, alright, what if someone is slipping him something without him knowing, yeah? Quite a few people here on the base have access to interesting chemical substances. I mean, Miss Sienna Cooper, for one. Although, would she actually do that? I mean, opportunity, yes, tick. Motivation, tick. But even so, drugging someone, that's a stretch. Now, my point is, if we knew what was coursing around his bloodstream, it'd be a hell of an indication. We'd have something, at least. I tried to suggest that maybe we get some hair. But no way. According to Johan, that would constitute an assault. I mean, come on. You throw someone into a padded cell, you put a lock on the door, you treat them like a savage animal, but a little trim to the hair. No. That's outrageous. That is an invasion. That is actual bodily harm. That's grievous bodily harm. I mean, these fucking people. I tried talking to Jack Anderson about this. He and Mark were mates. He told me quite a story, something he'd heard that had happened to Mark in Afghanistan. It seems that Mark's platoon were out in their Warrior armoured car things, and Mark was in the front vehicle, and a suicide bomber just jumped onto the second vehicle. His best mate took most of the shrapnel. It just ripped clean through him. The other four were wounded, but Mark was untouched. Apparently they sent him back to Bagram to speak to someone, to talk it all through, but he didn't want to. He didn't want to sit in camp after his mate had died, so they let him go straight back out. I mean, even Jack knows they shouldn't. Anyone with any sense would have known that. I mean, Jesus Christ, the army can really fuck you up. And Jack says he's seen all kinds of strong men fall apart with PTSD. You know, you can't predict it, he says. Jack, he's with me. He says that locking him up is the worst possible idea. So I asked him if he would come with me to Johan to see if he could persuade him to let Mark out. And suddenly it was all like, no, there's no way he wants to do anything like that. He won't stick his head above the parapet. He's so much for comrade in arms. Says he trusts Keone to do the right thing by him, and they bloody better. So yes, it was a dead end with Jack. And apparently they've worked out a rota. Maria does breakfast, Jack does lunch, Luca does supper. Yep. They're letting Luca, who's been officially written up as a perv, alone with a man who can barely say his own name. Great work, guys. Naturally, now Anders has had to come back to work to cover Mark. I mean, of course, he's going around belly aching about he can barely do his job with his injury, and now everyone else is belly aching about listening to Anders belly aching, and the whole camp atmosphere is just horrible. Everyone is utterly divided over the Mark situation. There are essentially two camps, those who want him locked up and those who don't. Cheerleader for the Johan Lock Him Up Brigade is Sienna. I had hoped that she would rise above her thing with Mark, but no, she's the one saying, you guys should have seen it coming. And I'm sorry, Sienna, but weren't you the one who attacked him at the poker night? And as I say, I thought better of her, if I'm honest, but I suppose this kind of event really does scare people, and we're all just fucking stuck here, desperately wanting things to continue as normal when things are anything but. We all just need some answers.